Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: a Chinese student was sent back to China following a 10-hour interrogation in Houston. What triggered it? His private messages, his answers, or even his parents. Russia has struck a new energy deal with China, agreeing to send over more natural gas. Those sales are a key source of funding for Moscow's war in Ukraine. For the first time, Chinese Communist leader Xi Jinping, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and North Korean regime leader Kim Jong-un are expected to appear together on Wednesday. China is set to showcase its military and U.S. weapons on Wednesday. What message is the communist regime sending to the West, and how serious are the threats? Experts break it down.
The Chinese Communist Party poses the greatest threat, direct military threat to all democracies on our planet.
A Chinese student with a valid visa and full scholarship was recently stopped and questioned upon arriving at Houston International Airport. U.S. authorities focused on his potential ties to the Chinese Communist Party. The student, surnamed Gu, had planned to study philosophy at the University of Houston. He had previously completed a semester-long exchange program at Cornell University, but instead of starting his studies, he's being denied entry, sent back to China, and banned from entering the U.S. for 5 years. At Houston Airport, Gu underwent 3 rounds of interrogation for nearly 10 hours. Officers questioned him on his potential ties to the CCP and whether his studies in America were state-funded. Gu denied receiving government money, but admitted his parents are party members and that he belongs to the Communist Youth League. Customs agents examined his phone, uncovering links to the Chinese Students and Scholars Association. It's a group with documented ties to Beijing's foreign affairs system. For example, a 2018 report by the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission states that this association often coordinates with Chinese authorities. The report highlights the association's role in suppressing free speech on American campuses, describing it as an extension of Beijing's United Front operations. While Gu says he has no plans to join the Chinese Students and Scholars Association, he did say he'd like to speak with Chinese embassy officials. U.S. officials later ruled that his entry lacked adequate documentation and sent him back to China. Early this year, Republican Congressman Riley Moore and Senator Ashley Moody introduced the Stop CCP Visas Act. The bill is not limited to students and researchers in STEM fields. It also imposes broad restrictions on Chinese citizens. Congressman Moore says that even Chinese students in the U.S. who come just to study could later be pressured or recruited by the Chinese Communist Party. Senator Moody stated that, quote, as long as the CCP has laws forcing Chinese students to gather intelligence on their behalf, we cannot grant them student visas. Chinese nationals are currently the second largest group of international students in the U.S., with over 270,000 enrolled, second only to India's 330,000. Back in May, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio posted on X saying, quote, the U.S. will begin revoking visas of Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. Recently, President Trump stated he would welcome 600,000 Chinese students to study in the U.S. The comment drew backlash from his MAGA base. The White House later clarified that the figure refers to a cumulative total over 2 years. It also confirmed that the current student visa policy has not changed. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent played down the idea that President Trump's tariffs were pushing China, Russia, and India closer. On Monday, he said that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit hosted in China happens every year. He described the summit as largely performative. Bessent accused India and China of fueling Russia's war machine, calling them bad actors. He also added, quote, at some point, we and our allies will step up.
Bessent also gave an update on the Russia-Ukraine war on Monday. He said slapping further sanctions on Russia is still a possibility and all options are on the table. Bessent said Putin has done the opposite of what he indicated he would do when he met with President Trump in Alaska last month. Russia has increased its bombing campaign on Ukraine with no signs of letting up, while President Trump has previously invoked deadlines to impose sanctions on Russia if Moscow does not make moves towards peace. So far, he has not followed through on those threats. Bessent said there will be further discussions this week.
Russia and China have a new energy deal. Moscow has agreed to supply more natural gas to China and signed a memorandum on building the vast Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. This is one of the world's most expensive gas projects.
China is the world's biggest consumer of energy. Russia is the world's biggest producer of natural resources. The No Limits partnership between the two countries has strengthened since the West imposed sanctions to punish Russia for the war in Ukraine. Russia has pivoted towards China since losing a lucrative chunk of the European gas market. Gazprom has sought an agreement for years on building the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. It would be capable of delivering 50 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year to China through Mongolia.
A large share of the money Russia uses to fund its war in Ukraine comes from energy sales. And that's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. You can catch the full episode on Genjing World every Tuesday. To watch, simply click the link in the description box down below or search China in Focus at genjingworld.com.